What if I told you there's a nation of nearly 3 million people, with 35 distinct tribes and a really rich history that you can't even find on a modern map? Today, we're going to journey into Nagaland. It's this forgotten nation whose ancestral lands were literally split in two between India and Burma. And we're going to follow one man on a pretty dangerous quest to cross this forbidden border, all to keep a promise he made 12 years ago. This little exchange, spoken on some remote mountain trail, gets right to the heart of the whole Naga story. You see, to an outsider, it's a border crossing. But to a Naga, it's all one land. This artificial boundary line, as they call it, is the source of a conflict that's defined their very existence for generations. So, the man at the center of all this is Vizier Sanu. He's a Naga historian who actually spent years in exile over in Australia, but he's now come back to his home village of Konoma. And he's not just here to, reconnect with his roots. He has a very specific and very dangerous mission he has to complete. So who exactly are the Naga people? Well, we're talking about a massive, really diverse nation. The big problem, the thing that has shaped their entire modern history, is this. After the colonial era, their homeland was just carved up. Half was given to India, the other half to Burma, which we now know as Myanmar. And this division, done completely without their consent, was, as one Naga leader put it, the starting point of the conflict. And this is where the huge political story becomes deeply personal. 12 years ago, Vizier made a real bond with a remote tribe deep in the Burmese mountains, the Kiam Nungan. He promised them he'd be back. Now, he has to make good on that promise, and that means crossing the border illegally to be crowned their chief. It's about forging an alliance across a line on a map that he and his people completely refuse to recognize. Now, you gotta understand, Vizier's journey isn't happening in a vacuum. Not at all. It's taking place against the backdrop of this relentless 50-year struggle for sovereignty, a fight against not just one, but two powerful states. Their long fight for freedom goes way back, starting with some fierce resistance against the British invasion in 1879. Then, in the 1950s, leaders like Angami Zabu Fizo founded the Naga National Council, or NNC, to campaign for independence. The Indian Army's response was just brutal. In 1956, entire villages were burned to the ground, forcing people into the jungle for years. Today, there's a fragile ceasefire, but the movement itself is really fractured. The human cost of all this resistance has been absolutely immense. The NNC was the spark, right? But its leaders were systematically targeted, either exiled, like Fizo, or assassinated. This created a power vacuum, and rival factions started controlling different territories, sometimes even fighting each other. And ordinary civilians paid such a heavy price. Vizier's own father, a village chief, was repeatedly imprisoned and tortured by the army. All right, so with all that heavy history in the back of our minds, let's get back to Vizier's modern-day quest. His journey takes him straight into the Patkai Mountain range, a forbidden zone that forms the heavily militarized border between India and Myanmar. The trek itself is just an ordeal. They start out from the city of Kohima, trying to navigate all these military checkpoints where different factions are in control. Pretty soon, the trails just disappear, and they have to ditch the car and go on foot. They're climbing high up into the mountains in this endless cold rain. At one point, Vizier tears a muscle, making every single step agony. Finally, at 3,500 meters, they cross that invisible border and start the long climb down. And it's not just the political dangers out there. This is Sanguan. He's one of the last historical NNC chiefs traveling with Vizier. He just casually tells the story about a horrifying bear attack that left him disfigured. It's just this raw, visceral reminder that for these men, life as an outlaw in these mountains is a constant struggle for survival against both man and nature. So after days of completely exhausting travel, they finally arrive, and the whole mood just shifts from this tense survival mode to pure celebration. This is the moment they risked everything for, the coronation of a chief and this powerful revival of ancient traditions. Now check this out. The centerpiece of the whole ceremony is this massive drum carved from a single giant tree. This thing is not just an instrument. In ancient times, it was where warriors would place the heads of their enemies. And during a lunar eclipse, they believed a tiger was eating the moon, so they'd beat the drum to scare it away and, revive the light. It's basically the cultural soul of the entire community. But here's the thing. This revival of tradition is happening right in the middle of a major cultural shift. For generations, life revolved around the murung, the ceremonial house, and the animistic beliefs guided by the village chief. But then Baptist missionaries arrived, and the church has become the new center of power. Now the pastor holds authority, and a lot of traditional objects, even some of these sacred drums, were destroyed because they were considered contrary to the gospel. And the ceremony itself, called Liam, is this incredible pact of peace that just perfectly captures this cultural mix. You've got warriors performing ancient ritual dances, warlords and chiefs come to pay tribute, viziers crowned with the traditional headdress, making him one of them, but then the whole thing ends with a community feast and a prayer led by the pastor. It's a true fusion of old and new, all to forge an alliance for mutual protection. And you can still see these potent symbols of the past all around you. Many of the older warriors proudly wear these intricate facial tattoos. This wasn't just decoration. It was an honor, a mark that signified a successful warrior. And it was all tied to the ancient practice of headhunting, a custom that, in these super remote regions, actually continued until the late 1980s. But, celebrating the past can't erase the harsh realities of the present. After the ceremony, Vizier has to return to a Nagaland whose future is really on the brink, crippled by the very conflict he is trying so hard to bridge. So, this is a really crucial point. The Naga people are basically economically marginalized in their own land. A staggering 95% of businesses and economic activity are owned and controlled by non-Nagas. With pretty much no industry and very few opportunities, there's just this deep sense of economic despair that fuels social conflict. And this economic crisis is tangled up with two other huge challenges. First, the land is heavily militarized, which creates this climate of fear that just scares off any investors or tourists. And second, its location, right next to the Golden Triangle, has fueled a devastating heroin epidemic among the youth, with infection rates for HIV from shared needles just soaring. And this quote from a member of the Naga Mothers Association really just connects all the dots. She explains that the endless political conflict is the root cause of everything: the internal fighting between factions, the economic despair, the unemployment, and the drug crisis. It has created a society where young people just don't see a future. You see, Vizier's journey to be crowned chief wasn't just about keeping a promise. It was really an act of cultural defiance, an attempt to stitch a nation back together that had been torn apart. It's a story that echoes in countless struggles for indigenous sovereignty all around the world, where lines drawn by distant empires still shape lives today. His success is a testament to his people's resilience, but it leaves us with a really vital question. In a world of artificial borders, how does a people's identity endure?